I'm advocating somewhat. It may seem like a contradiction to say, hey, you should use some more rules, while also saying, hey, let's stop using rules. But I've used the wrong terminology, and it's one reason why I hate terminology, because it's just as likely for jargon to create misunderstanding and miscommunication as it is to clarify communication. And I've been using phrases like rules light or ruleless, and people go, I don't like diceless systems when they hear ruleless. I don't. Well, okay. So more accurately, what I'm talking about is, don't make the players learn a bunch of rules. Just have them come to the table and learn basics. You have to understand that if you're completely new, you got to know what a crossbow is. If you don't, I think most people do, but just as an example, you may have to be briefed on some of that sort of stuff. How far you can move, um, what the difference between uh, ring mail and plate mail is, or something like that. That might be, but just little things like that. Instead of, here's your manual, enjoy reading that, and make the person think, feel like they're back in school having to interpret all that stuff. Just let them play. Um, but as a game master and as a creator of worlds and an arbiter of gaming within the world, I use the term all options on, which is in reference to more like computer gaming, where you can toggle certain things on and off. Uh, the more detail, the more immersive. Some people will go, that's not true, and I don't know where they're coming from with that. Uh, the more realism and walking through, especially in the medieval times, walking through damp, swampy, conditions. That's where bacteria and viruses. So yes, it's realistic, and that's more immersive to be more realistic. And so, well, sometimes realism isn't fun. I don't want to die of some stupid disease. I want to die, in a blaze of glory on the battlefield. Well, the first step is, don't get so married to a character, especially one that hasn't achieved very much yet. Um, the way I see it is, the development of a character should be what gets you. If you've had somebody that's made it through 25 levels or 30 or 40 levels and has really done a whole lot, sure, it's going to sting a lot harder if they finally die, or they. But that's good storytelling. Think of somebody like, we always brought this up when I was discussing um, drama and stuff. People like Joss Wheaton, who will just acts a character. You'll really get invested in somebody, and then they're gone. And some people go, "That's not a good story. I want my heroes to survive, and I want a happy ending." It's the red shirts that are supposed to die off, and I think that the story there is, you never know. For when you hear somebody express regret because they didn't reconcile with a family member, like a father or something like that, you know, think of that. It could be tomorrow. And I think that having that in the game, especially a long-term campaign, really builds role-playing potential, creates tension, drama, friction, and those are the kind of things that make for interesting game. If you just can walk through the world impervious to everything, and it's like playing with a cheat code in a game. It just, you should be extremely vulnerable. It, you you catch a disease, your friends will try to find a way to save you. If they don't, you may, you're on your own, try to make it to some sort of apothecary or shaman or whatever, um, medicine man, whatever's applicable, and try to get yourself cured. Now, and think of stretching your chops as a role player where you're you've got some sort of disease that'll affect you. You know, I've got a stomach disease, so you might be up chucking every once in a while. You have to role play that out. It just makes there's not enough role play in these games. People are very easily run off of staying in the vibe. And some people get real upset. They go, I don't want to be pushed into this, and it's hard to maintain that discipline, and it's not that big of a deal. Okay, but I think that if you put some more effort into that and more players played, maintaining that kind of in character vibe, it'd be a much richer and more interesting experience. Um, Respiratory things can affect your ability to fight in combat, perhaps. Um, so basically, in these, it starts affecting your attributes too, and that's a way of showing you shiver, kind of people who are very sick look sickly. They lose weight. They become drawn out. You know, they got the bags in their eyes. I got this because of a different reason, but no, it's not drugs. Um, but yeah, and that's to show that up, and uh, it would just make things interesting. What if you got a brain thing, and it makes you act funny? You know, just gives you an opportunity to explore role playing in a greater depth, and really shines through the fact that there's a lot to overcome as a group, and the more adversity you overcome, the more accomplished you'll feel when you do it, and the more hero like you will be. The way I see it, so I'm a big fan of using this kind of stuff, and the unfortunate thing is most people will balk at that and invoke the usual cliche, this, that, and the other thing, and it's too complicated and it's too fiddly and all that. And I just feel like when this stuff isn't used, I'm playing the diet version of the game, and it doesn't have the flavor that I like. I want to bite into a steak, not a rice cake. So, but I don't know that I'll win anybody over. I'm certainly not a great salesman or anything like that, but I always advocate for people to resist the urge or the natural inclination. It's not really an urge so much, but people almost reflexively, well, that'll be too complicated. That adds to the game. That'll run it down. That'll make it this. Just try to fight that, and go, okay, well, I believe it will. Some people might try it and come back and go, see, I told you so. It didn't work for us because we didn't have fun doing it, or it took too much time or whatever. Well, maybe. But if you really open your mind and give it a shot, you might be surprised at the positive, things that it brings to an immersive, deep campaign. As far as wargaming, that's a different deal. That's more like, let's find a way to make combat factors more malleable, and I'd love to see that. And the way to do that is to stop printing them on counters and start finding a way to make them record sheets that can be modified. If you used it doesn't have to be 8.5 by 11 or something like that, but if you use some sort of truncated version of a PC record sheet for your units, you could have a lot more malleability in what you do. And of course people go, well, I play this game and there's the counter density is too big for having, well, for you. But what I did is that's why I always mention, you'll hear me say it all the time, I always played with my trusty Tandy 600 at the table. And after it was a 600, there was an 1100, I think it um, was the upgrade, whatever, my trusty. And now I got this thing. So I can have those numbers in the dreaded awful spreadsheet, which really isn't. It's just a friggin' tool. It's not that big of a deal, and I can have that malleable attack factor in there, and it does the same thing. It makes a completely new game with a whole new set of interesting decisions and problems to overcome. So, variety, but just trying to